This is a comic book, and this is my Bible. And yes, we are talking about the canon today on Tofer's Take. So I would imagine many of you know this about me, but I'll say anyway. I am just a little bit of a comic book geek. I mean, I don't read every comic book. There's one series that I still keep track of to this day. And I'll give you a big old hint. It has a lot to do with this series. And I'll give you more hints throughout this, but it got me thinking, that there are things in comic books, that are considered canon and not canon. For example, the Joker's origin story, as told in the classic A Killing Joke. A lot of people consider that canon, although officially it's not. There are stories in comics that take place in other timelines or in other universes, or just for fun, that are not considered, part of the main canon. And granted, there is quite a bit of things that are considered canon, but if you think back, Batman's been around for, 80 years now? Not every single Batman story that's out there is considered, to be canon. And usually, the context clues or the author or, the writer will let you know whether that story is canon or not. You can usually tell most of the time by reading it. So you might be asking Chris, hold up, Toph, what does this have to do with the Bible? Well, in the Bible there are 66 books, and this kind of came up in a discussion I had, and I wanted to touch on it some. A lot of people think the canon of the Bible, of what books are in the Bible and what aren't, was established at Nicaea, the Council of Nicaea, and I think they just affirmed the canon. I don't think they established it. Because going back to my point about, whoever's writing the comics would tell you whether it's canon or not. If you look, Paul references Luke, Peter references Paul. I would argue that within the first century, after Christ's death, they had a pretty good idea of what the canon is, and I'm not going to take the time to go into all the details, or all the research, but I'd say within the first century after Christ's death, they knew of the canon of the New Testament. Now, the canon of the Old Testament, I think was established by the time the New Testament rolled around. I say that because if you read the New Testament, it cites the Old. You have people like quoting Genesis or Isaiah or Jeremiah, or the Psalms, or Exodus, So the Jewish canon of the Old Testament, I think, was established. And this is kind of maybe a little why I wanted to, get in on this today. Is because there are books out there, like Maccabees, While the Maccabees aren't canon, do I think they're worth a read? Yeah. Do I think there's knowledge in them? Yeah. You know, I'd say the same thing about Sirach or Ecclesiastes, or Baruch. You know, do I think they're worth the read? Do I think you can learn from them? Do I think that maybe they're even historically accurate for the time? Yeah. Do I think they're got scripture? Not necessarily. There are other books, even a little bit more. If you expand the gauge a little bit more, you have books like Enoch or Jubilees, and as much as I would like, Enoch or Jubilees, I can't put an early date on them. You know, I can't say they were written when they were supposed to be written. Early enough for me to say, yeah, they might be canon. And yes, I have read both of them. But you see, the thing is, comic books have been around 80 years, at least, probably more. I use that because, Batman's been around 80 years. And canons change. Things get retconned or revisited in the world of comics. This will probably give my riddle away from earlier, but Jason Todd's resurrection, got retconned. He resurrected this way, and then a couple years later, wait, no, that actually didn't happen. It was this. And I don't think the canon of Scripture, will ever get retconned. Will ever get anything added to or taken away from it. Like I said, I've looked at the other books. Some of the deuterocanonical books or the Apocrypha. And I don't think they match up to Scripture. I think they're valuable. I think they're insightful. I just don't think they're Scripture. And there is one final piece, one final aspect I want to look at. In the comics, you have what's called fan fiction, which, the name pretty much explains it. It's fans writing their own stories. I think we have that in Christianity. It's called Gnosticism, or the Gnostic Gospels. I've not seen anything in any of the Gnostic Gospels that even remotely resembles that it might have been written around that time, or might have been accurate. And yes, I have actually read several of them. But I feel like I should say this as well. There are other people throughout the centuries who have written some pretty cool things. Like one of the more popular guys is C.S. Lewis, but even looking back to the writings of the early church fathers, like Ignatius or John Chrysostom, they've written some pretty cool things. Some things that we could learn from. Some things that might have some insight. And I think we should read those. Whether it's John Eldridge or St. Basil. There are other things that are written that are out there that can help us learn and grow in our faith. And I think we should learn from them. But, we should not at all equate them to scripture, because C.S. Lewis never wrote a gospel. He might have wrote some pretty cool things, but he might have actually been inspired by what he wrote. I'd even go as far as to say that. But as far as the canon of scripture, I'd say it was settled. Anyway, I hope you've liked these fun insights and my thoughts on the canon of scripture and all this. I hope I did a good job at, kind of putting it in light, in comparison it to the comics. Anyway, you guys have a great day, and we'll see you guys around. Peace. So I actually forgot to talk about one of the most very important canons out there. And it's this canon right here, baby. Yeah! Alright, you guys take care.